Bitcoin crashed. Whew. Pew.
Like,
boy, what a free fall.
but like, so did the stock market. I mean,
Mhm.
I think it's it's what we were talking about earlier. I think there's I don't know if there's a direct connection, but it certainly casts a little bit of question into this whole notion that Bitcoin is bulletproof and crypto is its own thing, unconnected to the rest of the economy.
History is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know.
Right now, just as a result of the Bitcoin kind of gold rush throughout 4 of what we'll call crypto winters, as a result of that gold rush, almost 170 distinct industries have been affected by the computer chip shortage. You can only make so many due to supply chain issues, even pre-pandemic. And the thing is that these chips can be used for all sorts of stuff that is not involved with Bitcoin. So you could argue that at a certain threshold, every time somebody is scooping up technology and dedicating it to mining Bitcoin, they're scooping it away from these other industries. Goldman Sachs specifically found 169 industries have been impacted. This can't go on forever, you might be thinking. And if so, if you're thinking that, you're on the money. Because here's how the rules change. There is a cap. There are only 21 million Bitcoins that can ever exist. And to manage this generation, the Bitcoin network adjusts the exact amount of work and number crunching required to make coins. So they adjust it such that the number of Bitcoins will rise at a steady, predetermined rate. And it'll continue to do this, the reasoning goes, until the number of Bitcoins in circulation reaches that 21 million cap. Right now, that's projected to occur around 2140. So if you are hearing this in 2140, write to the show. Let us know if that ended up being correct. Is it complicated? Yeah, of course. But don't make a mistake. There was money to be made, so everyone, for a while, went absolutely nuts for this. They went bonkers and bananas. Your faithful correspondents, by the way, some of our friends included. As crypto's popularity skyrocketed, people began learning more about one of my favorite parts of the story. It's incredibly shady origin. And I think we have to talk about that. This is a little bit, here's where it gets crazy, but it is worth knowing if you're not aware of this previously. The truth is this: the identity of Bitcoin's creator is a huge mystery. The story really starts with a mystery. The phrase cryptocurrency, as Neil Stephenson as it may sound, it was not coined by him. The concept first comes out in 1998. A person named Wei Dai mentions this idea, pitches it on a mailing list for something called cypherpunks, CYPHER, punks. And Bitcoin's creator, who went by the identity or the persona Satoshi Nakamoto, in 2009, Satoshi publishes the first specification, like practical description of Bitcoin and proof of concept. And then later, toward the end of 2010, this identity, this persona ghosts. It's gone. It's off the grid. And all we know really is that this person or people using this handle did create the idea, the practical application of it, and then did disappear. And we know that that name, that handle, is not their real name. Bitcoin.org, by the way, is low-key hilarious about this because they have to dispel a lot of fear, right? And they say this person, whom they identify as male, by the way, they say this person does not currently control Bitcoin, and that due to the nature of the open source tech, this is my favorite quote here. You can find it on bitcoin.org. They say, quote, "The identity of Bitcoin's inventor is probably as relevant today as the identity of the person who invented paper." And we don't know who invented paper. That's the point they're making.
Well, it's mimetic. It's like a self-replicating system. once it kind of gets off and running, right? At that point, it just doesn't, it's like who invented DNA? I mean, look, that's a silly comparison.
Well, I think you just insert the word flash into that sentence.
It's fair.
Invented flash paper.
Oh man, we see. Okay, Matt's got some hot takes, some flash hot takes. But it's true. I mean, like, at this point, it's kind of irrelevant. It'd be interesting to know, but would there be a reason you think? I mean, I could think of many why that person would not come forward, because they probably don't want to have their spot blown up, essentially. Because it is something that's pretty controversial still. And I would imagine they've cashed out and they're probably living the yacht life at this point.
Yeah, quite possibly. If indeed it is a single organic individual. I mean, there are a couple of guesses we could make with, one, they could have been working out of school using some knowledge from their day job that might be considered proprietary. That got Blake Lemoine fired. Second, it could be an op. It could be a front. It could be a government organization. I'm completely secure in saying that because there's no proof otherwise. Anyway, so there are controversies. Surprise, with Bitcoin. It's got a shady origin story. It involves a lot of often misunderstood technology. Oh, and it's also a shitload of money. You can understand why Bitcoin is controversial given those three factors. Governments have always been publicly skeptical of Bitcoin and blockchain technology in general. It's true that some outliers like El Salvador have adopted it as a recognized currency, but major economies, including Uncle Sam, to this day refuse to recognize it as what's called legal tender. And if you look at if we assume the perspective of countries and financial institutions, we can see how this idea, the skepticism and caution, makes sense. I mean, Bitcoin potentially does a lot of things that are dangerous if you're happy, at the top of a financial or governmental regime. The citizens of your country can undermine government authority because they can kind of circumvent and skate around capital controls. Obviously, this can help launder all sorts of things. It can disguise criminal activity for sure. And then the third thing that they don't say as much out loud officially is that potentially Bitcoin and things like it could destabilize the entirety of the existing global money regime, global financial infrastructure.
And then the irony there is, for the longest time, the conversation from crypto bros and evangelists has been, this is an alternative to the crooked system of capitalism that is legally, recognized. And you better get in while the getting's good, they say, because this is going to be the only game in town before you know it. And don't you want to, protect yourself from the ebbs and flows and the whims of the Fed and all of that stuff? Sure you do, right?
Because this thing's so stable, man.
It's its own thing.
It's bedrock, baby.
It's not going to follow any of those trends, right?
Well, that's the idea. But and that's the question. How long can this thing last, right? It could just be another currency-related bubble. This has definitely happened in the past with numerous things identified as currency by one civilization, culture, or another. From day one, there were plenty of critics who were certain that Bitcoin would eventually come crashing down, and now it appears they just might be correct. Bitcoin crashed. Whew. Boy, what a free fall. Go ahead.
But so did the stock market. I mean, I think it's what we were talking about earlier. I think there's I don't know if there's a direct connection, but it certainly casts a little bit of question into this whole notion that Bitcoin is bulletproof and crypto is its own thing, unconnected to the rest of the economy. Because these two things kind of happened in tandem, I mean, we haven't experienced a full crash or a full recession, but it sure feels like we're heading that way.
But the stock market isn't a currency, right?
Right.
If the statement was the dollar crashed, right, that would be applicable to what's going on here, right?
I
There's
agree.
a difference.
There is, but also,
it is like an investment it feels like you're buying some kind of commodity, some kind of, shares or stock when you're buying Bitcoin. I think the way it feels when you've got it, because it's worth so much real world money, but it is in itself a currency. I think that's why it's weirding me out, because we do think about it as a stock market going up and down, but in reality is the value of a currency.
That's a good point.
Last name. But the value of like traditional currencies, they don't ebb and flow the way cryptocurrencies do. Cryptocurrencies ebb and flow much more like stocks, and I believe are treated more speculatively in the way that stocks are often treated. That's why I think they're sort of in the middle. Like they're related, but different. But I see exactly what you're saying, Matt.
And so this brings us to another important issue. I want to paint the scene here. So cast your memory back. By the end of 2021, Bitcoin itself had fallen 30% from its peak. Its peak was about $69,000, $70,000 per coin, and it fell down to $47,686.81. Ethereum, which is sort of the Pepsi to the Coca-Cola here, also fell 23% to $3,769.70. And throughout a lot of January, much of late January in 2021, through, let's call it late April, cryptocurrency in general struggled. And Bitcoin was swinging back and forth, Edgar Allan Poe pitting the pendulum style. Sometimes it was 35,000, sometimes it was 48,000. And now, look, if you're an investor, this is your what the F moment. But before anyone panics, we have to note that Bitcoin value has fluctuated before. To your point, Matt, about treating something as a currency via an investment, it would be weird if an investment did not fluctuate to some degree. The crypto market, in fact, has fallen by 50% or more on 4 different occasions, including the current crypto winter of 2021-2022. But is a little different now because back in the day, for a long time, Bitcoin was 95% of the crypto market until about 2013. So you could arguably just say the first crypto winter really was a Bitcoin winter. But this crash, the one you're in now, has people worried, partially because of the many other factors involved, as well as the extent, or I should say the timeline of the crash. It seems to be continuing. This is what is sometimes called a free fall. Anyway, if we go back, stay in 2021 for a second, this is the first time that a Bitcoin associated industry announces layoffs, job cuts, April 2021, just a few days after everything goes to pot. An outfit named BitMEX lays off 25% of its employees. Let's just fast forward, 2022, crash continues. As of the month we're recording this, both Bitcoin and Ethereum are down by more than 60% from their peak. I want to shout out a couple of journalists in this episode. One, Tom Mitchell-Hill. Tom, I love your last name, is writing at Cointelegraph and said, just this past June, this means in real terms that more than 80,000 people who were millionaires thanks to Bitcoin are no longer millionaires. They're no longer in the money. Crypto.
Yeah, when I first read an article from that outfit, I really thought it was Cointelegraph. Like, I really thought. But no, that article, it's pretty intense. Can I just give you a quick rundown of those specifics there? Okay, so back on November 12th, this is from the article by Tom Mitchell-Hill. Back on November 12th, just days after Bitcoin hit a new all-time high of around $69,000 that Ben just mentioned, a little under 109,000 Bitcoin addresses reported a balance of greater than $1 million. So an individual address, a wallet, right? So that's probably individuals, maybe a few people having multiple ones, but that's a lot of people, 109,000 who were at least $1 million worth in there. So you fast forward to today, the day we're recording this, and it says only 26,284 addresses now have holdings valued at over $1 million. So like that 80,000 people just got wiped out. That's insane to think about.
It's wild, but also think how exponential the growth was. Of course, the decline is also going to be exponential. I mean, so many of these people like made their money by getting in at the right time. And they didn't start with that much money. They invested, whatever, a respectable amount. And it blossomed into this crazy amount of money. But then if the farm on those holdings, thinking it's just going to last forever, and you're leveraged against those holdings, that's something you can do with crypto. You don't ever have to cash out. A lot of people don't cash out. They just leverage against it. You can borrow against it. There are exchanges or wallets rather, like one called Nexo, that allows you to leverage your holdings into zero interest loans that then you pay back with little, hits, little taxes, I guess, on your holdings, but you never actually have to cash out. Because once you cash out, then you're out of the system and then you're out of the game. So the goal for a lot of people is to stay in the system. But of course, when a hit like this happens, it's also going to be of epic proportions, just like the winds were.
Mm-hmm. And this is, the whales got hit as well. There's something called stablecoin. Stablecoin is it's a crypto thing that can occur in three different kind of buckets. So it's either collateralized by cryptocurrencies, it's sort of based on other crypto, or it's pegged to something like the euro or the US dollar, which means it's fiat backed. That's not a hot take. Those are fiat currencies. Or it relies entirely on algorithms to maintain supply and demand. So it picks a certain relationship to something like a dollar, and then it just modifies on the back end everything to make it maintain that value. Stablecoin is called stablecoin because, as you can imagine, the main feature of this is that it is not supposed to be subject to all the wiles and whims of the marketplace, and then that proved to be untrue. Lunaterra, a huge stablecoin, crashed, and this was such a shock to the overall financial system of crypto that when it plunged in value by 80%, it rocked the foundations of the entire crypto market. So that's one thing that happened. The stuff that was supposed to be stable turned out not to be stable in any case. And then, we said the SEC started paying interest. But in general, whether or not you're in crypto, if you live in the US, Uncle Sam wants you to pay interest too. Oh, what a terrible segue. No, everything's bad. Hikes in interest rates. That's huge. Like we're talking about, you mentioned earlier, Noel, the idea of a recession. Historically, if you look back in the span of modern U.S. civilization, when interest rates start rising aggressively, it is not proof, but it is definitely a sign that the Fed believes recession is on the horizon. So this hits all the investment things, most of the investment vehicles you can think of. Fed increases rates, stock market and the crypto market have this huge downfall because ultimately, they're voting on articles of faith, right? It's worth how much other people want it. So investors start selling, and this creates a bloodbath in the crypto market because the secret of crypto is the more people who are selling off stuff in a short time interval, the less and less individual Bitcoins are worth.